Initiating podcast download. Prepare yourself. Put on your spandex. Lace up your boots. Wrap your wrists. Hide your razor blade. Head to gorilla position. Grease up your hair. Apply baby oil. Okay, apply more baby oil. Get into gimmick. Keep your ears open and your mouth shut. Have fun and be safe out there, brother. Welcome to Iron on Wrestling. Now your host, Gregory Iron.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Iron on Wrestling with Gregory Iron. I'm your host, Gregory Iron. This is episode 112, and you could be anywhere, but you're right here with us, and we appreciate that. Today, our guest on the show, Orin Veidt, Deathmatch superstar, incredible story, incredible young man. Had a great time talking with him about a week and a half ago. That's right, I've had this podcast in the can for a little bit, and you are going to love it. Orin talks about how he got into deathmatch wrestling, his fandom of wrestling in general, almost dying because of a deathmatch, and so much more. It's a great listen, and we will have that for you later in the show. But I guess I want to start out by talking... I guess my time's up. Okay.
Pardon the interruption.
Okay.
Were you expecting someone else?
No.
Oh, I thought maybe you'd think John Cena was the special guest
No.
on the podcast today.
I just said who the guest was, so why would I think John Cena?
Yeah, but a run-in. He was cashing in.
Oh, he's not Money in the Bank.
Who won it?
Not
Should
John Cena.
Should we talk about that sometime?
We don't talk about current stuff on the free show.
That's right. So I think the people should take their money out of their bank and purchase Patreon /Iron on Wrestling /Greg.
That's no. Don't give them incorrect information. Patreon.com/Iron on Wrestling is where you can get bonus content, of course. Extended episodes of the podcast like this one today. Early episodes of the podcast, which, as you're listening to this for free, probably dropped on Wednesday, but you got it likely on Tuesday. Though I've been trying my best to get the show edited and up on Tuesday as quickly as possible. My schedule has become increasingly busy, but I put Patreon first, so I make sure to get that up on Tuesday. It's been a little later on Tuesday, sometimes in the afternoon as opposed to the morning, which I would like it to be up, but I'm rambling right now. $3 gets you in the door at patreon.com/Iron on Wrestling, and you get a follow back on social media from myself and Aaron. $5 you can get involved in Zoom calls. $9 you can get involved in bonus subjects, which you guys always pick great topics, and it's the favorited tier of the Iron on Wrestling Patreon, and there's so much more that you can explore over on patreon.com/Iron on Wrestling, including special videos, extended and full-length shows, rare shows. It's a fun time and a great wrestling community. That's the important part. There's over 70 people that are enjoying the content there right now. Patreon.com/Iron on Wrestling. But, I think we are going to talk a little bit about Money in the Bank on the extended version of the podcast. But first and foremost, I do want to sort of break tradition as what I was just talking about. I do kind of want to talk about something current. You played John Cena's theme. He did make his return at Money in the Bank this past Sunday. Did you watch the pay-per-view, Aaron?
Yes.
What did you think about the return of John Cena?
Well, I liked, no one was expecting it, right? Or had you heard some chatter?
There was some scuttlebutt on the internet.
I hear, but I keep hearing Cena Who's the other one I keep hearing?
Becky Lynch keeps
Becky
trolling
Lynch.
the internet. Yeah.
There's another one.
Goldberg has been the rumor.
Brock Lesnar. So for him to come out, though, and climb that ladder and reach up and grab the briefcase.
And that didn't happen. You're making stuff up. You did not grab any briefcase.
Oh.
You did watch the pay-per-view?
No, I did. I liked it, man. I was surprised at the end, very surprised. When the pay-per-view ended, at the finish of Edge and Roman, I said, man, I really like this pay-per-view. And maybe I felt like this match went on too long, though, and it's leaving me on a down. And all of a sudden, it's like Cena's music hits, and I go, oh, okay.
Yeah, it was really good. And for the first time in a long time, John Cena did not get a mixed reaction. Overwhelming cheers. And Roman Reigns, who, I thought with the return of fans, we sort of got a hint of it at WrestleMania. I thought for sure he was going to get some cheers because he is sort of cool. But at WrestleMania he got booed, and that continued with Money in the Bank. He got overwhelming boos. People legitimately dislike, or at least are emotionally invested in the character of Roman Reigns. It's very interesting and sort of strange to actually see John Cena getting the cheers that, in my opinion, he should have been getting for a long time.
You're right.
John is historically, and maybe there's someone else that I'm forgetting, but I think that he is historically the most polarizing professional wrestler in the history of WWE. I mean, can you name someone that's ever got the mixed reaction that John has got over the years?
No. And it's gone on for so long.
Pretty much since he became a top guy, and he really became a top guy in 2005, and which also, when you really think about that, the fact that the dude has basically been on top, not really counting this break that he had over the past year, dude's been on top for 16 years.
Yeah.
What other guy has had that longevity in the top spot? No one.
Let me think here. Hold on. How long was Hogan's initial babyface run before he left and went to WCW?
84 to 93.
Okay, so that's not 16 years.
No.
All right.
Maybe you can argue Bruno, but Bruno wasn't on top for that long.
Yeah. Bob Backlund?
No, not even close.
6 years?
Something like that. Wow. Austin. When you think of Austin, you say that is the guy that carried the company, from potentially going out of business.
Yeah.
But when you think about his run on top, really starts in 98, and it's over by 2003.
Yeah.
And that's counting a break in there.
Right.
He left in June of 2002 and came back in February of 2003. So,
and then when he left, he wasn't quite as popular, I didn't believe, when he came back.
In 2003?
Yeah. Do you think so?
I feel like he was popular. I feel like maybe in 2002, it was almost like WWE was sort of making his popularity sort of subside by not putting him in, they were putting him in weird programs towards the end of 2002. Like he did after Scott Hall, he was in that weird NWO angle where he was feuding with Ric Flair and Big Show and X-Pac, and Scott Hall then leaves, but he's there for a second, and then he starts the feud with Eddie, and I actually would have kind of liked that, but then they sort of just dropped that, and then he starts the feud with Flair again, and then he's gone. He leaves. Right. He walks out on the company. But I really feel like bad booking towards the end of 2002 there for him was really what kind of made the fans kind of go, eh. I don't even know if they were going because, again, not because of Austin, because just the angles were kind of whack.
Yeah. I guess that's it. Oh, Rock,
he wasn't on top that long, though. I mean, really, again, 98 to, 2001, he starts leaving for movies.
Yes.
2002 is sort of his last real lengthy run. I mean, he wrestled from, and that wasn't even that long. He wrestles from or he comes back in June of 2002 when Austin leaves, and he's only there until SummerSlam, so 3 months. I mean, that's
Mabel?
wild. Okay, I don't know if Mabel was ever really the top guy. He was in a top angle for a Taker. Yeah, but you could argue that he wasn't the tippy top guy.
Sting?
I would say Undertaker's maybe the top draw for a while there. So maybe you could make an argument for Taker, but
yeah, I don't know. Now that we've been talking about this, I really feel like you're right. John Cena's probably the guy, and the guy who actually worked the most too. He, you know, Taker would take breaks.
Right. And also, so basically, I want to talk a little bit about Cena and maybe some of his best moments or, our favorite moments involving John Cena before we get to the interview later with Orin. But it's like, I really feel like John not only has evolved from the, sort of generic babyface when he comes in during the start of Ruthless Aggression to the bad guy rapper to the beloved rapper to the, some might say the lovable babyface, the sort of Hogan of the Ruthless Aggression era. And then for other people, it's kind of the guy that was getting shoved down your throat and no one could stand. And I really feel like, and I always use this example all the time, when Cena makes that transition, while I think it was best for business in terms of, maintaining that mainstream audience per se, I feel like it really separated the older fans and the younger fans. I mean, it was easy for the younger fans and, of course, the girls to love the babyface John Cena. But when it came to the male demographic, which he went over with rapping, once he changed and stopped rapping, I think that's what created that the divide. You know what I'm saying? That's what started getting the mixed reaction. I always use the example.
Because the rapping was him being cocky, and that's what people like.
Mm-hmm.
People like the cockiness out of somebody. Love the cockiness out of Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock.
And yes.
And John Cena's original version.
And I always use the example in seminars when I talk to kids about, sticking with what gets you over. And obviously there's some circumstances in which you can make an exception. I think John Cena is one of them. But I always think to myself, you do Stone Cold and Bret Hart, WrestleMania 13. Stone Cold's in the sharpshooter. He bleeds out, passes out from the pain. Bret Hart starts beating Austin's ass after. They do the infamous double turn. Without question, the best double turn in the history of wrestling. And Bret walks out the bad guy after coming in the good guy. And now Austin is the beloved hero. And I often say as an example, can you imagine the next night on Raw, Austin comes out, and instead of giving the middle finger, he's just putting up his index finger, like, yeah, all right. And he's like starting claps.
He's
and
doing
everything.
a thumbs up, yeah.
Right, yeah, like he
Let's go, baby.
He becomes the stereotypical babyface, and he stops doing what won over the crowd in the first place. And I really feel like that's what happened with Cena. Again, great decision for the company, and obviously it's paid off immensely today by staying the course and not ever turning John heel. But I think for the older demographic, seeing Cena go from that sort of controversial, you don't know what he's going to say, rapper babyface to the just stereotypical Hulk Hogan, I guess in some way 1980s good guy, it really, he lost a lot of male fans at that time. And I think it really stuck out more than ever. I mean, it started very quickly in 2005, but I think the turn really began immensely when you get to One Night Stand 2006 with Rob Van Dam and the infamous "If Cena wins, we riot" sign.
Yes.
And I think that almost made it cool to hate John Cena. I think it was that pay-per-view that did it. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But that's what sticks out as sort of a milestone in my mind.
Yeah, that was a big deal, man.
It was a big deal. And I can't believe we just passed the 15-year anniversary of that show, which makes me feel old.
15 years.
Yeah.
Anything else wrestling-related happened 15 years ago?
Well, I had my first match on July 9th. Yeah, I didn't talk about that at all.
No. So what happened?
I
That was the match with the basket case?
No, so that was my first singles match. My first, technically my first match would have been the July 9th, 2006 Cleveland All Pro Wrestling 34-man over-the-top Russian roulette battle royal for the television championship, in which I eliminated Basket Nazi, Michael Hellborn, which was his name. Don't think you could do that gimmick anymore in 2021.
I don't know how appropriate it was for 2006.
Probably not appropriate then either. Not sure how he got away with it. But yeah, I passed the 15-year mark, which is pretty ridiculous. Can't believe it's been that long.
Well, congratulations on all your success.
Thanks. Maybe I'll be releasing some T-shirts soon. I know 20 by 20 Pod made me a nice little ditty that I might throw up on Pro Wrestling Tees, and I appreciate them. But yeah, 15 years of wrestling. Can't believe my body has withstood all that punishment. But also, over the years, John Cena, while he may have got some flack for his wrestling ability, this man has also withstood a bunch of punishment. So when you think of John Cena matches, what comes to mind first for you, Aaron?
Great Khali. Didn't he give him the attitude adjustment off like a bulldozer or something?
He definitely gave him the attitude adjustment, but I don't remember. Maybe it was. I don't remember that. But I thought you were joking when we said Great Khali because I don't remember those matches being good.
I don't remember. I don't even know if I cared if they were good. It was a spectacle. You know what I mean? Cena was over. My kid loved wrestling at the time, and John Cena was his favorite. And to see Cena go against the big, bad, nasty heel,
Yeah.
it was just a cool thing for us.
Sure.
Here. So that's why that's the first thing that comes to mind.
Well, I think that's around the time, too, where I think the idea was sort of proposed, again, in an effort to make John Cena the 2010, but like 2000s, 2010 version of Hogan was, create a monster factory for him to take down guys. So like Great Khali, I remember at the time Snitsky was doing that no hair, yellow teeth gimmick, and I remember Snitsky being rumored to be one of the guys that he was going to go against, and I was like, I don't know if this works at this time period in wrestling. And they really didn't go that far, but I mean, like, he sort of did have monsters. So like when you say Great Khali, when I think of maybe a monster that John Cena went against, I think arguably he had some of his best matches against Umaga. And, I wasn't too crazy about the Umaga gimmick, to be honest. Like, just something about that gimmick in that period of wrestling, I also thought that didn't fit. So I never really got super invested in it. But you can't argue that Umaga was a great wrestler. And one of the matches that stick out for me when I think of John Cena is his match at the Royal Rumble, I believe in 2007, where it's, I think it was Last Man Standing. And John Cena, this is one of the first times they end up taking the rope off. And John Cena puts him in the STFU with the rope around his neck.
Sweet finish.
And it was amazing.
Yeah.
Just a great, great match. All of their matches really, they hold up really well, and they're fun to go back and watch.
Sure are.
But when I think about early John Cena and sort of that transition period from rap to the white meat babyface. And one of the first matches in that transition that I think about, that I think people forget about. Everybody talks about Judgment Day 2004 between Eddie Guerrero and JBL and how bloody and disgusting that was. Mm-hmm. But the next year at Judgment Day, the very same pay-per-view, they end up doing the rematch between JBL and John Cena from WrestleMania. So at WrestleMania 21, Cena wins the belt from Bradshaw. First title reign begins. And I think it's important to point out that in the build-up to this match, John Cena gets rid of the traditional WWE Undisputed Championship, which, of course, at that point just became the WWE Championship, and he debuts the Spinner Championship, which, of course, we previously see an incarnation of a spinner belt with the U.S. Championship, which I was okay with. And at first, I think I was okay with the spinner belt because it was different. Mm-hmm. However, I did not think that we would see that belt for the next 8 years.
Yeah.
How did you feel about the WWE spinner belt?
I thought they were cool at first, and plus I thought it was cool because I knew what they were doing, like the merch deal. They were going to sell hundreds of thousands of those. I remember I bought my kid. My kids probably have 7 or 8 different spinner belts.
Wow,
here,
it's ridiculous.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. I was okay with the spinner belt for a while. I don't know that. I think it overstayed its welcome.
Well, in the story, JBL ends up getting his hands on the old belt, and so it's sort of old belt versus new belt, or they at least try to portray it that way. Or John Bradshaw Layfield is pretending he's still the champion. Whatever the case is, they end up doing a I Quit match at Judgment Day. Which, do you remember this match, Aaron?
The I Quit match at Judgment Day
between JBL and Cena.
Yeah,
it's brutal. Cena gets maybe some of the most ridiculous color in the history of WWE. No joke. And again, if you saw Eddie Guerrero the year before, I would say it's not as bad as Eddie, but it's pretty on par with Eddie Guerrero's blood at Judgment Day 04.
Mm-hmm.
And the finish of the match was pretty beautiful. They end up having like a sort of semi-truck gimmick in the entranceway. I can't remember if Cena comes out on a semi-truck or something, or it's already out there.
Mm-hmm.
But for the finish,
Yes.
Cena ends up pulling off the tailpipe of the semi-truck, and he's going to ram it into JBL's head while he's laying prone against the truck.
Yeah.
And it's such a beautiful story. And JBL ends up going, I quit, because he doesn't want to get this tailpipe rammed through his face.
Yeah.
And so Cena wins the match. But then, of course, after the match, Cena still fucking runs the tailpipe into him, and it's amazing and awesome. And just, I think it's like a match that is sort of underrated and gets lost because it's sort of in the beginning of that transition into Cena becoming this big white meat babyface.
Yeah, you're right.
That's it. That's all. Okay, you're right. What other classic John Cena matches or moments do you sort of look fondly on?
Maybe my all-time favorite John Cena match was when Edge cashed in Money in the Bank on him. Because I thought the story was beautifully told.
Yeah.
And it had never happened. We didn't really know what the hell was going on.
Right, yeah. That was New Year's Revolution 2006. Of course, Edge won the Money in the Bank before there was even a pay-per-view. It was just a match created by Chris Jericho and Storyline at WrestleMania 21, when WrestleMania went Hollywood. And, of course, when the cash-in does occur, it is very shocking, and I don't know if there was a more shocking cash-in than that initial one by Edge.
Right. Because you didn't know what to expect.
Right. I remember at the time I wasn't ordering the pay-per-views unless it was, one of the big four.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember just going online to read the results, and I was like, okay, let's see. John Cena retained, right? And then when it said Edge is the new WWE champion, and he wasn't even in the Elimination Chamber, I was like, wait, what happened? And when I started reading, I was like, oh, my God. Because it was so beautiful because, of course, the winner of Money in the Bank could have a title shot whenever he wants, but you didn't think it meant whenever he wants.
Yeah, you just thought it meant, like, okay, if he wants the title shot on the August 3rd SmackDown,
Yeah.
Okay, well, then he'll announce it or whatever.
But in this case, it was he wanted the title right after Cena was in arguably the most gruesome and grueling match he'd ever been in. He just survived the final two, which was, in retrospect, weird. Carlito and Chris Masters. It was almost like they were really going to try to give them a main event push. And when we were talking off the top of my head, I believe in this Elimination Chamber, the other participants were Kurt Angle, Shawn Michaels, I believe, and someone that I'm forgetting. But the fact that he ended up down to Carlito and Chris Masters before besting them was kind of strange in retrospect when you look back. But yeah, Edge comes out with Vince. He cashes in. And after a couple spears, he wins the championship. And it was a shocking moment. And it led to, maybe you could argue, Cena's best rival of all time. Where would you put Edge in terms of his greatest rivalries?
Yeah, that might be number one for me.
You think so?
Yeah, I mean, Orton, a case could be made for him.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it just got overdone.
The Orton one?
Yeah.
Maybe. I remember.
And they always seem to go back to it. What do we got for this month? Nothing right now. Let's do Randy and John.
Yeah. They did have some good matches. You can't discount that, but I think it was a little bit overdone. I think I remember when they went back to the well with that feud, because I think they do it in like 2009 pretty consistently, because they end up having like an Iron Man match and all that good stuff. But they come back to it in 2014 when they put the championship belts back together, and
right.
They did. It wasn't called the Undisputed Champion. It was, what was it called?
The WWE and the World Champion.
Yeah, but
right?
didn't they have a name for it? Because it wasn't Undisputed. It was
the Unified.
Unified. Yeah. They call it the Unified Champion. When they make it Orton versus Cena, it's kind of like, oh, we've seen this before.
Yeah.
And like, oh, God. But Edge and Cena, especially at the time, it was fresh.
Mm-hmm.
Edge reminded us a lot in storyline, but it was true. Once he won that belt, the ratings went up for Raw, and they had been on the downturn for a long time, ever since ECW and WCW closed, and he got the best ratings in a long time. I remember I was entertained by the live sex celebration. Not sure if you could do that again today, but I think that helped with the ratings the next night as well. But I think there was genuine intrigue in Edge winning the title because it was an interesting storyline. But, you know, they end up doing the match at the Royal Rumble. Cena wins the belt back. Cena's going to go on to wrestle Triple H at WrestleMania. Edge is going to create the first real WrestleMania moment for Mick Foley in that match that, of course, ends with the Flaming Table. But they circle back later in the year, and they have those two matches that I think everyone remembers from SummerSlam, which was interesting because they end up doing that in Boston, and Edge wins the belt, when you think it would have been the other way around. And then, of course, they do the show the next month, Unforgiven 2006. That, of course, took place in Toronto, which is Edge's hometown, and it was a TLC match, and I believe this was only the second singles TLC match, the first being Edge and Ric Flair early in the year. Do you remember this match at all, Aaron? Edge and John Cena in TLC?
Yeah, but barely. I don't know.
Finish
why.
of the match, Cena gives Edge the FU through a stack of tables off the top of the ladder, wins back the WWE Championship. Maybe one of my favorite John Cena matches of all time.
See, I don't know, man. I think one of the best. Well, actually, it's not the match so much; it's the moment when Cena returns at the Royal Rumble.
Oh,
As a
2008.
surprise. Was that? It was 2008?
Yeah.
Wow. Was that after? Didn't he get hurt in a match with Batista or something?
Mr. Kennedy in Cleveland.
Oh,
And they thought he was going to be
That's
out.
right.
They kept saying reports that it
I
was
was
like 9
there.
months to a year. Yeah, I was there too. And so that's why I think that's why people were genuinely shocked, because they kept it under wraps, and he was back in like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So when he came out, they're like, "No way, this can't be."
Yeah, 3 or 4 years, and then he was back.
No, it wasn't. It was not 3 or 4 months.
3 or 4 months, okay.
Yeah, and that was a great moment. I agree with that.
What about the moment when he announced that Bin Laden had been compromised to an end, to a permanent end?
I believe that was Over the Limit 2011, just a couple months after his match with The Miz in the main event of WrestleMania. I believe he wrestled The Miz in a cage. Could be wrong. Just doing this off the top of my head here. But yeah, they end up catching Bin Laden, and I would imagine someone, being Vince, was in the headset and said, "Someone tell Cena that Bin Laden's caught," and to announce it over the house
But
mic.
he couldn't say that we killed Bin Laden or Bin Laden's dead.
No.
He had to say it in this weird fashion where he said, Bin Laden has been caught and has come to a compromised ending or something like that.
Well, let's actually play it so we can sort of relive what exactly Cena said. Hold on, let me find it. Okay, first thing that pops up. John Cena reveals news of Osama bin Laden in Extreme Rules 2011. So I was wrong. It wasn't Over the Limit. It was Extreme Rules. But I do believe it was a cage match. So here we go.
I don't think it was.
I walk out here every night with hustle, loyalty, respect.
10:55 p.m. it says.
That is a credo I have adopted from the men and women who defend the freedom of this country.
Preach.
We have caught and compromised to a permanent end Osama bin Laden.
He did say compromise to a permanent end. USA chants, of course. I mean, this shot is incredible. Kevin Dunn gets a lot of flack for too many camera changes now, but just the wide shot and just the real moment of this.
Something
It is something. It's pretty awesome.
But I feel damn proud to be an American.
Luger?
No, it's not Luger.
Oh.
I got chills listening to that because, while it is sort of can I say absurd? I feel like it's absurd that happened during the pay-per-view. Like, what are the odds of that? And it just but it's like a real life moment, and what better guy to be in that position to sort of announce it to the WWE crowd?
Yes.
And just sort of say that we finally caught Bin Laden after 10 years of pursuing this guy after, of course, 9/11. Just what a surreal moment.
And I wonder what Cena was thinking.
I would imagine he seems like a very patriotic man, so I'm sure he was pumped up to be able to announce that to the crowd.
Alrighty.
Do you think he wasn't?
Yeah, no. I feel like he was.
You don't feel like he was happy to announce that Bin Laden, who murdered, hundreds of people.
Allegedly.
Allegedly? What? You don't think that it was Bin Laden that did 9/11? You're one of these conspiracy theorists?
I'm just saying. There's a lot of evidence.
Of what?
Of conspiracy.
Okay, well, so you have nothing to back up your claims. Okay, fair enough. Before you end up getting yourself canceled somehow, let's move on.
Right.
Oh, boy.
Who's the best person that ever said Bin Laden?
What?
Martin.
What do you,
Martin Lawrence?
Yeah, I know them. I know Martin.
Yeah, he was in some movie and he gives. You remind me of Bin Laden.
I don't know what movie that is. I am a big Martin fan. I used to enjoy the television show very much.
I think it was one of the Big Mama movies or something.
I saw the first one. That's all I needed. I never saw any after that, so it's unfortunate.
Yeah, well, we've been talking about Cena's matches. What about any of Cena's movies? Did you see that Playing with Fire? That thing was hot.
I don't know. I saw The Marine when it first came out.
Yeah, I saw it.
I don't think it's a bad movie. I remember when The Marine came out, I was like, this isn't that bad.
Yeah.
But I think he did a great job in Trainwreck a few years ago with what's her face?
That was good.
What's her name? Who am I thinking of? Amy Schumer.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought he was good in that, and I really enjoyed. What was the movie where he's like the parent from a couple years ago? It's him and Blockers was the name of the film. Didn't we see that in theaters, or did I just see it in theater when I worked at the Ridge? I don't
remember ever seeing that movie. Who was in it? Cena and who else? Anybody?
Cena and the chick that was in Big Daddy.
Oh, you can't call them chicks anymore.
Yes, you can.
Can you?
Why can't I?
I don't know.
I
feel like you'll get canceled.
I don't think that's offensive at all. Who's the girl that Adam Sandler hated in Big Daddy?
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
She paid.
Oh, Blockers! I know what you're talking about. I know the whole movie now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like cock blockers.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But they have just like a silhouette of a rooster.
Yeah.
In the title, and
yeah, that was a good movie. Emotional.
Well, the girl, Geraldine something or another, that's in the film.
Ferraro.
She ends up. That's not her name. She ends up playing in another movie that I really enjoy that was on Netflix, and I think we talked about it. That film being The Package, where the dude accidentally cuts his dong.
Doesn't sound familiar.
What? We definitely talked about that. That is a hilarious movie that I think was just a Netflix exclusive. It's really good. You should really watch it. If you like... it's not the same movie at all, but I feel like it's on par with the hilarity, which some people may argue with. Coffee and Kareem.
Oh, yeah.
That movie is hilarious, too. But also a movie that you feel like, I think it was made in 2019, feel like it was not made in 2019 with some of the stuff they say in it, because it's like, oh, boy, can you say this today? I don't know. But, yeah, Cena has had some good movies, and obviously... he has done what only really The Rock has done as far as films. He's really made that transition into some big money-making feature-length films, including the Fast franchise. He's in that now. Mm-hmm. He was involved in the Transformers films. I mean, Cena is really a big-time Suicide Squad that's coming to theaters soon. Cena has really parlayed into Hollywood.
He has. He's followed in the footsteps of, like The Rock.
Mm-hmm.
And Hulk Hogan was in a lot of great movies.
Listen, you're saying that in a sarcastic fashion, but I'm not going to argue against that.
Ooh, me? Sarcastic?
All right. Suburban Commando is an all-time great film,
Yeah.
and we're approaching the 30-year anniversary of said film this October. Mr. Nanny, not a bad film. No Holds
Not a
Barred.
good one.
Classic. Okay. 3 Ninjas High Noon at Mega Mountain.
Yeah.
Not the best film. But, you can't win them all.
Right.
Okay. That's definitely one of those movies that an hour in, you feel like it's the end of the film, and then it goes on for 30 more minutes. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, boy, this is not good. And you know what? So it's ironic that Cena ends up making this big transition to Hollywood because, if you remember, arguably one of his greatest feuds was sort of centered around the other man leaving the WWE Universe for Hollywood, that being his feud with The Rock.
Yep.
Back in 2011 through 2013. How do you feel about John Cena versus The Rock?
Oh, that was fun. That was a nice. It was cool because it was the first time they ever did like a year build for WrestleMania.
Yeah. Well, I mean, really, it ends up being a 2-year build because it's billed as once in a lifetime. But we get it again the next year, which is, I mean, listen, I enjoyed both those matches. I don't know which one I really liked more than the other, but I will say the highlight of that feud, the moment for me, happened to occur in Cleveland. That moment in Cleveland was the rap battle / rock concert between Cena and The Rock, which was very cool to experience live for multiple reasons, one of which being we got the return of the Doctor of Thugonomics, John Cena, and then, of course, while his rap was great, the main event of the show was The Rock playing the guitar, and that was the first sellout in a long time in the Gund Arena, and the last sellout for WWE since. And while I love John, and I think he's incredible, he's never really, I don't want to say he hasn't drawn sellouts in general, but when it comes to Cleveland sellouts, it's been rough since the Attitude Era ended, and the only thing that brought that crowd into Cleveland wasn't exactly John Cena rapping. It was definitely the appearance of Hollywood megastar The Rock. But the beef that the John Cena had with The Rock was, you left these fans for Hollywood, and I would never, ever do that. So it's just weird how the tables have turned. And
he ended up apologizing for those remarks.
He did.
And he said, you know what, now I understand what The Rock was doing, and he's made this business better for all of us by becoming more mainstream.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to be that mainstream. Look, The Rock's arguably the biggest A-lister.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
All his movies go number one.
He is the Arnold of this generation.
He had the TV show Young Rock that we liked.
I enjoyed that.
Yeah. Anytime he's on a talk show or something like that, he always nails it. He always hits it out the park.
Oh, yeah.
So,
for sure.
Cena, I'm happy for him that he followed in those footsteps and he's doing movies and stuff, because you can't just do wrestling forever.
No, you can't. But also, listen, it makes sense that Cena would be able to do that because one can argue that whether you love Cena or you hate him, he's maybe one of the top 5 promos in WWE history. And that's saying a lot. I mean, Cena goes out there and he nails it every time. You want to talk about someone who can cut a promo, especially a go-home promo to sell a pay-per-view, John Cena is your guy. Even if you're not really emotionally invested in the feud, you get to that Monday or that Friday before the pay-per-view, whatever brand Cena's on, and he's got to sell you that go-home promo, he nails it every time because he brings realism, emotion, and I buy in every single time Cena does it. Just like this past Monday, when we're recording on a Monday, obviously, as we've told you guys in the past, Cena opening the show on Raw. His promo. I got chills. I'm talking about the return of the fans, and I know the fans have been back for, a few days now, And so we're sort of getting used to seeing it, but just the emotion behind the things that he says, and just Cena,
He knows how to talk.
Yeah, he's just on another level. I would love to ramble about basic thugonomics, John Cena. I could do that all day because I loved his raps. I loved his match with The Undertaker in 2003, which everybody forgets about.
No, that was one of my favorites, and I don't know why I didn't say it.
It was a great feud. I could talk about Thugonomics John Cena all day, and I would love to hear you guys' feedback on your favorite Thugonomics John Cena moments. But there's so many matches we didn't talk about.
Yeah, this isn't even a John Cena podcast. We've been going, an hour and 12?
We've been going a little bit, but we want to know your favorite John Cena moments in matches. He had great matches with Kevin Owens, great matches with Seth Rollins.
And I told you that story before.
What's that?
When he and Kevin Owens were working together, and the client at the place that we worked for, Center for Adults with Developmental Disabilities, somebody who never spoke ever in their life to me.
Yeah.
And I had just assumed was a mute.
Right.
And this girl every day on Tuesdays, when I'd come into work, she'd look at me and she'd just do the "you can't see me," the hand in the face.
Yeah.
And that's all I thought she was capable of. And then finally one day, and I kept saying, I would try to heel out on her, and I'd go, "Oh, Kevin Owens is going to beat John Cena at the pay-per-view. Then what are you going to do?"
Right.
Cena made Owens tap. And I came into work the next day, and that girl, this was on a Monday, and that girl had said, she motioned for me to walk over to her, and she whispered, "Owens tapped out." And I was like, "You talk?" And I was like, "What? Why have you never spoke before?" And she said, "I never had anything important to say." So John Cena forcing Kevin Owens to tap out, was important enough for her to finally say some words.
That's a big statement. It's crazy.
And so I immediately got word to Kevin Owens, who happened to be sitting next to Cena on the flight, and then Cena read the text and then asked for my number so that we could communicate, and then he ended up sending her, I want to say, over $200 or over $300 worth of merchandise.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cena is a heck of a guy and had some great moments in matches, but one moment that I want to touch on before we roll on with the podcast is I think it's the best match he's had in WWE, and I feel like it's a little biased because this match ends up leading to a very important moment in my life. But, some people can agree or disagree with Dave Meltzer. It's one of the very few WWE matches that he's given 5 stars over the years. Money in the Bank, 2011. July 17th, I believe, 2011. I remember watching this event at Harpo's Bar and Grill with Johnny Gargano. And what a great
you guys
card.
Are just throwing back a few, huh?
We don't drink or smoke. But this was a great card. And the 2 main matches on the show, other than the Money in the Bank, of course, which Daniel Bryan won, the World Championship match, Christian versus Randy Orton, but for the WWE title. We're talking John Cena versus CM Punk. If CM Punk wins, he leaves with the belt, and CM Punk did, in fact, win, and he did leave with the belt, at least for 4 or 5 weeks. But, nonetheless, great match, great moment, post-match, a lot of stakes on the line there. It was in Chicago, CM Punk's hometown. Crowd was rabid for John Cena. If you've never seen that match for some reason, you need to go back and watch it. I think that's Cena's best match, but also I want to point out that I can't believe that they had this incredible feud between Cena and Punk happening at the same time, that they had a very interesting and incredible feud happening between Randy Orton and Christian. 2 very compelling top feuds going on in the same time. 2011 was sort of a year that gets underrated, I feel like, in WWE.
I can't believe that was 10 years ago.
10 freaking years ago. Crazy.
Was that when Christian started saying one more match?
Yeah, when he wanted another shot at the title,
Yeah.
right? And then he ends up winning the title back via DQ.
Yeah.
And they do a double turn.
Yeah.
We talked about Austin and Orton. They originally Christian loses the belt.
We talked about Austin and Bret Hart.
Oh, I'm sorry, Austin and Bret Hart. My
Yeah.
bad. But Christian and Orton do this feud. Orton sort of steals the belt away from Christian 2 days after he wins it, after years of pursuing it.
Yes.
And the internet's like, I hate Randy Orton, WWE sucks, Christian lost the belt already, blah, blah, blah. And then they do a thing where he wants this one more match. And in order to get that belt back, he's got to do some dastardly things. He ends up turning heel. And then the way he wins the belt back is via DQ. He causes Orton to lose his temper. And I believe he hits Christian with a low blow in front of the ref for a chair. And Christian wins the belt via a disqualification like a true piece of shit.
Yeah.
But we weren't talking about Christian or Orton. We're talking about John Cena.
Hey, just real quick, visually, John Cena giving the FU to both Big Show and Edge, I think.
WrestleMania 25.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
incredible.
that was cool, man.
Yeah, well, he had actually delivered it, but he did pick them up both
Yeah.
on his back, which is just
Yeah, that's impossible to deliver it to both of them.
Yeah.
Somebody would die. but-
ungodly strength, though.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy. But Cena is the man. I feel like he's finally getting his due, but, absence makes the heart grow fonder. But before we go to the interview with Orin Veidt, got to bring something back today.
Oh,
Yeah. See, in honor of John Cena.
the John Cena lie of the week.
KayfabeNews.com presents WW-Erotic Fan Fiction. Yeah, you like that, baby, huh? Yeah? Yeah?
All right. This particular edition of WW Erotic Fan Fiction was written by the author Cena is Nexus on May 24th, 2011 at 8:22 p.m. to be specific.
Wonder
The
what
genre?
he was doing.
Who knows? The genre is romance, of course. And the name of this entry, I think they wanted to call it First Time, but it's entitled Fist Time. We'll see if that's actually what they wanted it to be called based on what is written here. I haven't actually read this completely. And this, of course, stars the pairing of John Cena and his boyfriend in this scenario, Heath Slater?
Oh, he broke up with Dolph?
I guess so. So I will be playing the role of John Cena, while Aaron will be reading for Heath Slater. And we'll see how this turns out. Aaron, are you ready?
I don't think I am.
And I'm going to try to read this as it's written by the author because it's not penned very well. Here we go. John smiled as he walked into the locker room wearing the Core t-shirt. He saw Heath go over to his bag and start to get something out. John walked over and out his hand. He meant to put his hand around Heath's waist and kissed his back. We kicking ass tonight? Heath turned around and put his arms around John's neck.
We better. I'm a three-man band!
John smiled and kissed him, then dipped him.
Oh my God, John.
John smirked.
I'm sorry. Oh my God, John.
John smirked. Sorry,
Right.
Heath said.
Come. We got a match to win.
They came out to a pop. The match was good. They won. Heath wanted to jump in John's arms right there, but he'll just have to wait. With their arms around each other, walking up the ramp. You're mine tonight, Heath, whispered John, as he just smiled. They got back to the locker room, grabbed their bags and left, And of course, Heath, being Heath, did a Dukes of Hazzard across the car. Really? John said.
What I like to show off, you know that.
They walked into the hotel tired, of course. Heath turned around and pushed John against the door. Oh, John said. Heath smiled.
I'm gonna rock your world.
John bit down on his bottom lip. They kissed, rubbing their bodies there against each other. He felt like he was going to pass out. He never felt this way. And it felt good. Not felt. It felt good. They slowly went towards the bed. They laid on the bed. They were so nervous. John kissed Heath's neck. A small moan left Heath. He didn't want to stop his lips, sliding his tongue in slow, while sliding his hand to get John's shirt off. Heath roamed his hands in John's perfect body, kissed his chest. John has his griped in Heath's hair. John took off Heath's shirt very not slowly, slowing. They pressed into each other. Their members touched.
Members only.
John slid his hands onto Heath's shorts. Heath's lips started to tremble. John slid his hand along his penis. Heath closed his eye to the pleasure he was receiving. John slowly lowered the shorts, kissing Heath's chest. Heath hooked his thumbs on the waistband of his pants and slowly lowered them. Heath back up towards the bed and lay down. John slowly lowered himself onto Heath. "Just relax," John whispered. Heath nodded nervously. John lowered not himself, then came back up. Heath left marks on John. It felt so good. John dipped his tongue. His to John mouth, Heath moaned. That's what it says. John dipped his tongue, his to John mouth, Heath moaned. Heath bit down on his lip. They stopped. John looked at Heath.
Wow.
Heath said, John slowly got up. It was awkward for both of them. Heath slowly down. John lowered his head to touch Heath's. They both smiled. It was meant to be. The end? What?
That was romantic.
What did I just read?
I don't even know.
There are some botches in here because, again, there are botches in this writing. So first of all, I can't imagine John Cena and Heath in a relationship. Second
I
of all,
totally see it.
You can see it.
Oh, yeah.
You can't see John Cena, but you can see this.
I could see this being a relationship.
Why is that?
It just seems like those two had good chemistry.
Mm-hmm. I don't understand why there was awkwardness at the end here. And also, the sentence, which again I will read. John slowly got up. It was awkward for both of them. Heath slowly down. John lowered his head to touch Heath. They both smiled. It was meant to be. That does not make any sense at all.
I like it.
If it was meant to be, why is it awkward? Also, meant is spelled M-E-N-T.
Yeah. Well, if you want to go through all the misspellings.
There's a lot of misspellings in this. Also, the end of this ends with the text that says, current mood, smiling emoji, excited. Yeah. So the man who wrote this, which again was Cena is Nexus, was very excited while writing this.
But he was wearing a Core t-shirt.
Yes, there's a lot of irony here. All about the Nexus, but John was wearing a Core t-shirt. Yeah, that was the return of erotic fan fiction here on Iron on Wrestling. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Do you have some erotic fan fiction that you want us to read?
I enjoyed reading it.
I don't know if I enjoyed reading this one because it was hard to read.
Oh.
But maybe you want to write some erotic fan fiction for us that we can read on the podcast.
Not about us.
No, well, I mean...
Well, I guess it does depend.
It could be. So, if you got something you want us to read, send it on over to @IronOnWrestling on Twitter. You can, of course, do the same thing over on Instagram, @IronOnWrestling. Find us on Facebook as well. Send us a DM on Facebook. Just search Iron on Wrestling. And, of course, if you're not following us on social media, you should be. Make sure you give the podcast 5 stars. Creates visibility for the podcast. Leave a comment about the podcast on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps create that visibility, which we love and is super important. You're helping the podcast grow, much like John Cena and Heath Slater were growing while touching each other's members.
Their love was growing for each other.
Oh, yeah, that too. And, well, what an awkward way to end this portion of the podcast, because now we're going to go to some commercials from our sponsors, and when we come back.
Would you ever consider maybe a little fan fiction with our sponsors?
It's always a possibility. I mean,
if you're properly groomed.
Being groomed is very important.
I feel like it is as well. And guess what? We just won the championship today. You were there. Thank you.
Yes. Well
podcast superstar Jerry was there.
Yeah, he was.
A lot of celebrities were at the ball field to watch the Dodgers win a championship.
Yeah, you have to be very specific here because this segue was not good because we just read WWE erotic fan fiction and then you talked about
then it went into
groomed.
Little League. Yeah, I know.
This is not.
But my whole point was, as I explained last week, I haven't shaved anywhere since we went on this run. So now I can finally shave my freaking face and anything else. Do you want to help?
No, I don't. You should help yourself by utilizing your Manscaped Lawnmower 4.0. I'm sure you know all about the Lawnmower 4.0 because we've talked about it enough on the show. It's a state-of-the-art piece of technology with cutting-edge ceramic blades to reduce grooming accidents. You know Aaron's cut his balls up so bad in the past, and, there was a time where I used a dull razor and messed up my balls, and my dad was very concerned, but no longer, because I've got my Lawnmower 4.0, which, of course, has the 7,000 RPM motor, a new multifunction on and off switch, which can engage a travel lock, and it gives you the ability to use the 4000K LED spotlight. So when you need a more precise shave or maybe your electricity is out or whatever the case may be, you want to use these lights to make the experience just a little bit better. And tell you what, if you want to do it in the shower, Aaron, you can do that too. And why is that, Aaron?
Because it's waterproof.
That's right. Get a little bit of water on that bad boy. Doesn't matter. No. Drop it in the sink. Not a big deal.
Drop it in the toilet.
Yeah. Take a big steamy diarrhea poop and drop it in the toilet. It's going to be okay. You might want to wash it in the water after that, though, because, you don't want the...
Not in the same toilet water.
No, you don't want the diarrhea poop all over it. But you know what? You got to try the Lawnmower 4.0. And, of course, if you are already utilizing the Lawnmower 4.0, maybe you want to look into the Performance Package because not only do you get the Lawnmower 4.0, but you get the Crop Reviver Toner, which is great for the balls, the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant, and, of course, the Weed Whacker, which I enjoy very much because it helps trim those unsightly ear and nose hairs. I love it very much. And, oh, yeah, you also get the Performance Boxer Briefs with that and a travel bag to hold all those goodies. And, of course, Manscaped is always running special deals over on Manscaped.com. But, of course, if you want to support the podcast, you can get an extra special deal over on Manscaped.com just by using promo code PARDON. That's PARDON. You're going to save 20% and get free shipping. That's right, 20% off anything that you buy on Manscaped.com and free shipping. Aaron, is there a better deal out there than that?
There's not a better deal. If there was, we'd present it, but there isn't. So this is what you get, and you should be happy with it.
Take advantage of it because, listen, we'll thank you for supporting the podcast, but more importantly, Your balls will thank you for supporting them and making sure that you're finely shaven, okay? Maybe you can't see John Cena, but you can see that hair on your balls, and you want to make it disappear, and you can do that with Manscaped. Manscaped.com. Use the promo code PARDON. Save yourself some cash. We will return to the Iron on Wrestling podcast in just a moment, but I wanted to take a couple minutes of this time to let you guys know that if you didn't realize it already, Iron on Wrestling is a DIY project. That's right, I'm recording all this myself, I'm editing it in-house all by myself, I'm coming up with the segments and the content, and I'm making sure that each and every Wednesday, by investing countless hours of my personal time, you guys have a new, unique, and entertaining episode blasting into your ear holes. So I hope you don't mind that for a few minutes each episode, you have to deal with a little bit of advertising. Because, quite frankly, I gotta pay those bills somehow. But you know, I don't just pick anyone to be an advertiser on the podcast. When I choose an advertiser for the show, I want to make sure that it's someone that can bring you, the listener, value. I often talk about Of the Dead Designs and my good buddy Juan Ortiz, who can create you a unique logo or t-shirt design for your personal brand. But once that t-shirt design is made, who's going to print it for you? Well, that's where Jesse Massey and SBS Printing comes in. Jesse is a good friend of mine, and much like me in this podcast, he's DIY. For over 10 years, Jesse has been printing t-shirts and hoodies in the comfort of his own home, and he's been the official t-shirt printer for guys like myself, Atticus Koger, Eddie Only, Ricky Shane Page, basically all the 440 guys. My favorite thing about Jesse Massey is the quick turnaround time. When I go to Jesse and I need a shirt design printed right away, I know that he'll have it ready for me within 3 to 5 days, sometimes even quicker. And on top of that, he's affordable. Jesse and SBS can print one color shirt designs for as low as $5. $5. Where are you going to find another deal like that? Now you're probably thinking at a price like that, there's no way these could be quality, long-lasting prints. Wrong! They're super high quality and they're going to last you a lifetime. Jesse and SBS can print you t-shirts, zip-up hoodies, sweaters, and so much more. I encourage you to hit up Jesse right now. Shoot him an email at antisepticmaxrock@gmail.com. That's ANTISEPTIC maxrock@gmail.com. With Jesse Massey and SBS, you're going to get the best. That's no BS. Aaron, you're in the pro wrestling and or entertainment business, are you not?
Yes, I am.
Well, then surely you understand the importance of creating merchandise for yourself.
I do.
If you were to create merchandise just for yourself, do you have someone you could turn to?
Oh, gosh. I mean, yes. I have a good buddy.
Yeah, what's his name?
Juan of the Ortiz.
That name, it sounds vaguely familiar. It strikes somewhere in the subconscious. Why do I know that?
Well, Juan, actually, his middle name's Of the, and his last name's Ortiz. But
that's not true.
But he also is part of Juan of the Dead.
Of the Dead Designs, that's
yes.
it. Yeah, you know, sometimes I don't recognize Juan's name right away. But
why don't you?
I don't know. I go back into my subconscious and I think to myself, I've seen this guy's designs on TV. I've seen them in Hot Topic because he's created some of the highest selling tee designs in pro wrestling tee history. Of the Dead Designs, his created artwork for some of the biggest names in WWE, AEW, ROH, Impact, New Japan.
Yeah, but he's not created stuff for like the Young Bucks, has he?
Yeah, he did.
What about for Hulk Hogan?
Definitely did that as well.
Even for the likes of one Gregory Iron?
Yeah, but I think more important than that, the Nature Boy Ric Flair,
Woo!
CM Punk,
It's clobbering time.
Kenny Omega.
Hi, I'm Kenny Omega.
Hi, I'm in Delaware. Road Warrior Animal, oh, what a rush. The Lucha Brothers,
Cero Miedo.
Jungle Boy, and of course,
Oh,
he's done art for Iron On Wrestling as well. You're probably saying, well, I can't afford someone like Juan Ortiz or Of the Dead Designs if he's doing work for the Young Bucks or Hulk Hogan. There's no way I can afford someone's services like that, but you're out of your mind because Of the Dead Designs is affordable. Juan isn't just looking to create art for the superstars of today. He wants to do it for the superstars of tomorrow. And look, you don't have to be a wrestling superstar to get some art from Juan. If you wanted artwork for, I don't know, let's say to celebrate the life of a loved one, you could do that. Aaron, you know that. You did that for your son and his friend.
Yep.
If you wanted artwork to win over the heart of a lady, you could do that. I've never tried that, but if I did, I'd go to Juan.
You'd probably get a T-shirt of a girl and her grandfather fishing in heaven.
Okay, that's a random scenario, but Juan will create artwork for just about anything. Got a band, got a podcast, a dance troupe, kids' pee-wee football team, daughter's...
Ping pong?
What?
Ping pong tournament champion.
Okay, daughter's school bake sale, anything. Juan will do it. Hit him up. He's got over 14 years of experience and a portfolio of notable clients that speaks for itself. Of the Dead Designs will make you artwork at a super reasonable price. And listen, if you mention this advertisement, Juan's going to knock $10 off your first design. Of the Dead Designs has spots open throughout 2021. You got to hit him up right now while you got the chance. Contact Juan and Of the Dead Designs via Instagram at Of the Dead 209. Find him on Facebook at facebook.com/ofthedeaddesigns or go to the website ofthedead.weebly.com. He's the one-man merch design company that you need. Of the Dead Designs, bringing artwork to life. All right, we paid those bills. Now it's time to go to the interview. Finally, Orin Veidt, the Wizard King. He's a deathmatch guy, but he's also a dad, a husband, an anime lover, a free thinker, an Astros fan, and he's almost a decade sober. Always ask why. That's his motto. Let's go to the interview with Orin Veidt. All right, sir, can you please state your first and last name?
Orin Veidt.
All right, that's not your real name, though, is it?
It's an alias.
Okay. Where'd you come up with that?
Aquaman and the Watchmen. Okay.
I sort of felt like that might be the case, but I wanted to ask just to make sure.
Well, at least you had an idea. Most people can't even pronounce it.
Yeah,
so.
it's difficult, if you have trouble reading.
More people have trouble reading than you'd believe.
Listen, I don't have a lot of faith in humanity for the most part. Every now and then, I come across someone that keeps me going for a little bit because I'm like, oh, wow, that was like a smart, intelligent human. Maybe life's worth living. But then I'll meet someone else like 2 seconds later. I'm like, son of a bitch.
Yeah, and then everything's gone.
It's hard times. How have you been?
I've been good. How have you been?
Good. I'm glad we're getting to sit down and do this, even though the last time I saw you before this weekend was WrestleMania weekend in Tampa, and you thought it was pretty funny to go along with this rib on me. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
I've never ribbed anybody in my entire wrestling career.
Or you're lying to me.
Maybe.
You
However,
are.
I was informed that I was needed to do a job, and as a wrestler, that's what you do. You do the job, and so I did my job.
So I'm sitting at the show. What show was it? It was ICW, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was the last ICW show of the weekend.
And I think the first person to say something to me was Bobby Beverly. He goes, "Craig, are you okay? You look bad. Like you look really pale and everything." And I was like, I feel fine. And then Schlack, who I never really interact with, more than hi and bye, he goes, "You okay, man?" yeah, are you on insulin? You look bad. And I'm like, no, what are you talking about? He's like, you should go to the doctor. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, if Schlack is saying this, you know, I mean, Schlack just seems like
Maybe.
he's never gone to a doctor ever or a dentist or
Ever,
anything.
yeah.
So I was like, this is bad. And then you son of a bitch, you were like one of the last ones to walk up like, Greg, are you okay?
Yeah, man, you just looked flush. You know, I was a little worried. I was concerned, and they said that they were concerned. I'm just here to be a team player. But the look on your face, you were like, what is going on?
I literally couldn't figure out what was wrong. But then the best part was Ricky Shane Page also was like, yeah, you do look like there's something wrong. Here to find out, he wasn't in on the bit.
Oh, he wasn't?
Because like 2 weeks later, Bobby Beverly in a car ride, I brought it up. We were driving somewhere, and he goes, or I say, hey, remember a couple weeks ago when everyone was walking up to me and saying there was something wrong with me at ICW in Florida? And Bobby started laughing. He's like, yeah, I had everyone fucking with you about that, man. And
Bobby
then
blew it?
But then Ricky started cracking up laughing. He's like, I had no idea. I literally thought that, Greg, you just look like shit. So I'm like, that's very awesome. Have you
like,
ever had
I
a rib
appreciate
pulled
you.
on you? Anything of that nature?
Nope.
I mean,
Nope.
you're only 6 years in, right? You started in 2015?
Yeah.
So I want to talk about your humble beginnings in professional wrestling. You started in North Dakota?
Minnesota.
Minnesota, okay.
I mean, my first match was in North Dakota.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Yep,
So
it was.
See, I did a little bit of research
Actually
here.
correct.
I got what's going on. So where did you grow up? Did you grow up in Minnesota?
Yep, born and raised.
All right, so talk to me about growing up in Minnesota. What was your humble beginnings like?
Ooh,
as a
my
young man?
humble beginnings was on a farm.
Okay.
I grew up on hobby farms. We didn't actually raise anything or do any actual farming like real men. My family was all about just owning goats and pigs and whatever else we wanted to have around.
Okay.
Donkeys, horses, and so like my sister did all the chores. I stayed inside and played video games. I really was not a hardworking man, but I did love wrestling.
That's very important. I feel like that's why you are a wrestler. That would make sense, and that's why we're doing this podcast. And we'll talk about that. But when you say you weren't a hardworking man and on the farm you guys didn't do real man stuff, I feel like I can sort of sympathize. I didn't grow up on a farm, but my dad is really into building and fixing things, and that's just not my wheelhouse. Not interested
not
in
mine
that.
either.
Okay, because I want to make sure we're on the same page here,
Yes.
because I feel like I'm not a real man, and I jokingly say that all the time, but I feel like maybe that doesn't actually define you as a man, but it's just not my cup of tea, so it's not yours
No,
either.
yeah, I feel the same way. Like when all like my significant other, my wife, she can fix stuff. She can go in and fix the computer. She can do this. She can do that. And I'm like, look, if you give me an instruction book, I could probably get this figured out.
Yeah.
And then I am at like peak machismo for the next week because I put together that IKEA piece of furniture. Yeah. But if you ask me to build anything out of my hands, no, I'll leave that to the real men.
What about cooking?
I can cook.
You can cook, because I can't cook for shit either. This is something that my girlfriend is slowly teaching me. I'm very pathetic when it comes to cooking, but you're a good cook.
I'm a very good cook. I was once a head chef.
Really?
Yep, I was a head chef at a bed and breakfast, so not a real classy place. However, like I was a head chef and I loved it, but then I'm lazy and my wife does the cooking.
Okay.
So I can cook, and when I do, it's really special. I'll do like veggie dogs,
Okay.
It's real classy stuff.
What's your big specialty though? Is it the veggie dogs?
My big specialty, I would say, is any breakfast food.
Okay. I'm
Breakfast
into
food is my specialty. I can cook the heck out of any breakfast. I don't know if we can swear, so I'm going to keep it PJ.
that. Swear all you want.
Ooh,
Fine.
shit.
There it goes. Slipped up right there.
Yep.
Yeah, it's okay. No, we can do all the swearing. It's okay. This is not a PG podcast. But we're going to talk about wrestling. We're going to talk about life. We might even talk about some inspiring stuff. Like I said, this was last minute doing this podcast between us. But the way this came about was the last couple times we interacted, I feel like we just had great conversations off air.
Yes.
So it got to the point where I was like, we should probably just record a podcast about it. And so now here we are. So your childhood, though, you grew up on a farm. Is it one of these farm situations where you're like miles and miles from like the next house? And Are you okay with that? And do you still currently live in like a small town situation like that?
So everybody in my towns growing up, they all stayed there. None of them left. Everybody, they loved the small town. I could not wait to get to a big city.
Okay.
Because I remember we'd have to do the 35-minute drives just to go get groceries. And then it was a real big treat. You got to get McDonald's because we didn't have fast food in town. If
Right.
you did, it was Dairy Queen, and that was a little too pricey, you know?
Too pricey?
Oh, yeah, Dairy Queen was a little too pricey. So if we went into town and got some groceries, we'd get a McDonald's on the way back home.
But, like, so you're saying the chili and cheese dogs were too pricey?
Yeah, too pricey.
I feel like at that point they were probably like a couple bucks.
Yeah.
It couldn't have been more than that.
Yeah, but it like, the like chicken strip combo with the gravy, that like Dairy Queen specialty.
Yeah.
That was just a little too pricey for them. So
I
like,
gotcha.
which is funny because my dad made 6 figures a year, but I don't know where the money went.
So what did your parents do for
My mom was a terrible, horrible person. And just was stayed at home, did nothing, drank and online gambled all day.
Oh, shit. Okay.
And then my dad was an electrical engineer. And he had commuted to the cities back and forth every day, which is like 2 hours because we lived in small town Minnesota. And like he not college educated, he went to college but didn't finish, and somehow got a nice job at a big firm, and like he worked on the Mall of America, stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Now, when you say your mom is a horrible person, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that you don't really have a relationship with her now.
No. Fun fact. When I was 15, I found out I was having a child of my own. And I was adopted at birth. My parents then told me, you will either be our child or you will raise your own child. And I said, well, I'm obviously going to raise my son. And so they went to court and legally disowned me and legally made me a ward of the state. So I was abandoned at 15
Holy shit.
and made into a ward of the state.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So you don't have a relationship with either of your parents?
No.
Wow. Does that bother you at all?
No, I like one of the things that like I guess I like really wax poetically about, or like really get soft about, is like the family and wrestling. You know, like you've been in wrestling long enough, you know that there's a special kind of family that you get here.
Yeah.
As somebody who never really had family, you know, and family wasn't super important to me, like this family is all I need. You know, like having actual family doesn't really pertain to me. And it never bothered me. Like even when it happened, I was so ready to grow up and be a father that I was like, okay, like they don't want me anymore. Cool, sounds good.
Yeah. Well, you know, I can really relate to that family situation. My mom was a piece of garbage. Everyone knows on the podcast about that. Drug addiction, dabbled in alcohol, very abusive mentally and physically. My dad, I love my dad, but he did stuff to me and my brothers when we were younger that, like, I forgive him for, but he needs to come to terms with the fact that he did those things.
Yep.
He has this sort of revisionist history as if it didn't happen. You know, he's like, when your mom wasn't there, who was taking care of you? I'm like, yes, but that doesn't change that you're still
Yes.
sort of emotionally and physically abusive. I'm over it.
Yep.
I want to have a relationship with you, but, you know, you have to accept that these things happen. But when you say that wrestling is like your family, I get it.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when I was a kid, when I had all that bad shit going on with my parents, wrestling is what helped me escape and kept my mind on positive things. The light at the end of the tunnel. Was it sort of the same situation for you?
Oh yeah, like that was always the escape. And I remember growing up, there was nobody around me because, you know, a lot of wrestlers had friends that they backyarded with or did that. Like, I had one friend who also kind of liked wrestling, but he also had other interests. That's all I wanted to do forever was be a wrestler ever since I was 7. And my parents were always like, that's a stupid dream. Don't do it. Like, stop. Don't watch it. I remember having to like sneakily record Raw and SmackDown on the VCR and then get up super early in the morning to watch it before they got up.
Oh, wow.
And like I'd have to sneak out. And one of my like clearest memories was when they did Survivor Series and like the team with Maven won, and then every week they challenged for the world title.
2004, that Survivor Series was in Cleveland. I was there.
Yes.
Yep.
And I was like, oh my God. I remember like kid on Christmas thinking Maven was going to win the world title.
That was around the same time that the big rumor online, I don't know if you were online at that point, but the big rumor online was that Maven was possibly going to join Evolution. Do you remember this at all?
Oh, no.
I would have found that very interesting if it would have happened, because at that point I was like, you know, Maven's got a good look.
Yeah.
Good kid, you know,
Yeah.
solid drop kick. I could see maybe an evolution.
Yep.
But it never panned out. But that's around the time you start watching wrestling, because correct me if I'm wrong, you discover it through a neighbor and you end up seeing Eddie Guerrero and Kurt Angle.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
That's a cool first visual, because those are two of the greatest technicians of all time.
And when I got into wrestling, that's all I wanted to be. I was like, I'm going to be a technical wrestler like these guys were. Like, because that's when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, this is incredible.
Yeah.
You know,
what's also interesting, because like this has to be like, would you say it's them versus each other, right?
Yeah.
So versus not even a word. I don't know why I said that. But so Eddie Guerrero, Kurt Angle. So this is like 2004.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is after the Attitude Era. You're a little younger than me, 26.
Yep.
Okay. So did you ever go back and watch any of that stuff? And is it weird to you?
The Attitude Era stuff was like, you know, in and out a little bit. Like I came in right at the tail end. I remember Ruthless Aggression, so like I was around for that.
Yep.
And that stuff was the main thing. But I went back, and obviously I've watched a lot of the older stuff. But I was like Shelton Benjamin and Charlie Haas. You know, that era of stuff was all I saw. I remember like Paul Leonard and Brian Kendrick were my favorite tag team. Like I was on the edge of my seat every time I watched them.
I love those guys.
And going back and watching some of those matches from like that era, wow.
Yeah.
Now I get why I grew up loving wrestling.
And also, you know, even though it was sort of a down period, because, you know, so I get into wrestling in 2006, and at that point, especially, like now I feel like you can get into wrestling and there's so much happening that if you work hard enough, you can attain a level of success pretty quickly. But in 2006, when you're deciding to become a wrestler, you're not doing it, especially when you're my size, you're not doing it I think I'm going to go to WWE. You're doing it because you love wrestling, right? But that time period in WWE, once WCW sold and ECW sold, I feel like you come in where they arguably have the greatest roster of all time.
Yes. When that rookie class of Orton and Cena and Batista, like, how is like in Brock all together? How was that not the greatest roster of all time?
Yeah, it's a tremendous time to be a wrestling fan, and I also think like, do you remember the first WrestleMania you saw?
It was WrestleMania 20.
Okay.
Because my sister's boyfriend loved wrestling, and he ordered it, recorded it, and I had to pay him $20 to borrow it for a night.
To borrow it? So you had to give it back. What a scam.
And I was like, I was so over the moon thrilled.
Yeah.
And I remember the first and only one I was ever allowed to order was 22.
Okay.
WrestleMania 22 was the first one I was ever allowed, first and only one.
Not a bad WrestleMania.
No.
That was my last WrestleMania as a fan, because literally the next week I started wrestling training. So I remember I used that as like my sort of marker to be like, okay, I'm watching WrestleMania Sunday. Tuesday I'm going to go for my wrestling tryout. So I always remember when I started training.
That was
weird,
that's crazy.
Right? Yeah. But so it's a great time to be a fan. You're falling in love with wrestling. That's all you want to do. There's nothing else that you think, like, maybe I'll grow up and do.
So, plan A, wrestler. Plan B, Harvard lawyer.
Those are two very different job ideas.
That was because everybody growing up, because I argued so much with everybody, like, and I was a convincing arguer. Everyone's like, you could argue your way out of a locked room. I don't know why you wouldn't try to be a lawyer.
Right.
I was like, okay, sure. So then in my head, I'm like, yeah, I guess I could do that.
Okay. Well, so at what point do you decide the Harvard lawyer is not even an option? It's just going to be pro wrestling.
That always stayed as plan B, even through high school. Got a 32 on my ACT, applied to Harvard.
Okay.
And almost went. But then I realized the debt of that would be a little bit much, and like the struggle of trying to like then do the SATs and do everything like that. I was like,
But you were going to get accepted.
Yeah.
That's wild. Wow.
One of my favorite things, and this is like my one big flex that I always get to have, is the 32 on the ACT.
Yeah.
Because everybody that sat there and prepped for it, all the smart kids, and I was a smart kid, but I never cared, were so mad when they were getting 27s, 28s, and they were thrilled, and then they found out what I got.
Yeah.
And they were like, fucking Boone? Are you kidding me?
So there was not much preparation for this. It just sort of came natural.
Yeah,
for you.
I'm a really good test taker.
Okay.
I'm a really, really good test taker. And like some things come really easy to me, and testing, I don't get test anxiety and nothing like that, where everybody else is like, oh my God, this is the biggest test ever. I'm like, yeah, it's a test, whatever. I'm good at multiple choice. I could use context clues here to figure this out. So
No pressure.
testing has always just been really easy for me.
I get you. It's not my strong suit, but I appreciate the level of intelligence that you have. Very impressive.
But that's it. That's all I got.
That's all you have?
That's my flex. I'm not as street smart as other people.
That's fine. That's fine. Listen, you are wrestling smart. Your psychology is great. You're great at storytelling, especially when it pertains to deathmatch wrestling, but also regular wrestling too. And I want to talk about that later. But before you start this journey into wrestling and you're making this decision, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to find a school. We have to go back a little bit here. You are a 15-year-old father, okay? And obviously that becomes very important to you. How does that play into this decision to become a pro wrestler? Because you know it's not going to be easy. I assume you did your research.
Oh, yeah. I looked up, and it's weird because now, like, even a year or so after I got in, like, the plethora of schools just ballooned. You know, being in Minnesota, then the academy comes around, you know, Ken Anderson and Eric Cannon and Molly Holly, and you know, that comes around a little bit after I start, but I'm looking and I'm seeing, you know, all the basics, the Team 3D Academy, Johnny Rod stuff is always popping up. CZW came up, and as I was kind of looking around, I was like, I feel like CZW would be the way to go, because I remember Born to Be Wired was like my big like, oh my God, this is what I want to do forever. And so I was like, well, I guess fuck it. CZW might be the way.
Yeah.
But I was just a young, like, Mark kid. I was like, I'm going to be Dean Ambrose, and I'm going to be this and that. And
Yeah.
I showed up and unintentionally wore my Bullet Club shirt. Didn't even mean to do it.
Oh, no.
And so, like, looking back, I was like, God, what a douche.
All right, so here's the thing. And I feel like this generation is different because I have a similar scenario. When I would come to wrestling training when I first started, I had a D-Generation X hoodie, but it was like 2006 DX. All right, and I remember.
Oh,
thinking,
yeah, the
like,
good DX for me.
Yeah. See, for you, the
For
good
me,
DX,
yeah.
and I'm okay with it. Everyone always hates on it, but like, it was a different,
It was fun.
more immature version, I guess,
fun.
but it was fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was okay with it. So I got one of those hoodies where it was like the two drawings where they have the butt cheeks on the back and the DX spray paint logo, and I remember thinking, because I'm like an 18, 19-year-old kid, I'm going to wear this hoodie to training. Everybody's going to think I'm so cool. They're going to be like, brother, where'd you get that sweet DX hoodie? and then I'm going to tell them, and then we're all going to be like best friends. And I remember my trainer just being like, don't be a fucking mark wearing that new WWE shit to fucking training, you piece of shit. And I remember being like, okay. So then I started to quickly realize that it was almost like an unwritten rule that you couldn't wear current wrestling tees, but you could wear old wrestling tees, or you could wear an independent wrestler's tee, but you couldn't wear the new ones or else you'd be made fun of. But I feel like now...
It's kind of shitty.
Right? Like,
Right?
It's a weird... But, like, it wasn't, like, written out. Like, you
Right,
can't wear
yeah.
it. But that's the way it felt. So I guess it was sort of similar for you.
Yep.
But now... I don't know. I'm not going to make fun of some kid for
No.
liking and supporting wrestling, right? Like,
No.
we're a different generation.
No, well, not only that, but like we remember that we were those kids. You know, like when I'm helping out training and teaching at RMP, you know, Rocky Mountain out in Colorado. A lot of the guys that start are, you know, they're just in love with wrestling right now. They're wearing, you know, CM Punk stuff, or you know, they're super into whatever's going on right now, and that's all they want to talk about because that's what they watch and they love. And it's like, I remember that. I remember when like that was, you know, that was it. And then you slowly start to introduce them to these things that they might not know about. But you can't be like, oh, look at you, you Mark, you just love it. You're like, okay. Like,
Why
okay.
discourage them right
yeah,
off the
you
bat?
love wrestling. Awesome. Like,
Yeah.
we can work with that.
Right. Yeah. If you don't love wrestling, that seems to be the problem. So where did you end up training?
So I ended up training at a place called the AWF with Tony DiNucci, who was a notorious WWF, WCW job guy.
Okay.
I don't think I've ever seen any of his matches, but I know he was around. He was supposed to be in TNA back in the day, but he had a come to Jesus moment and moved back to Minnesota and did but real big carny guy. We've gotten into our handful of fights, but I was trained by big, tall dude, Sepio Saunders. Never did anything, should have done a lot of things, but never had the drive.
Sure.
Got lucky enough to be on shows with Eric Cannon from day one. And Eric Cannon's the guy that I'm going to credit for me being a capable wrestler. because nobody knows who Tony DiNucci is. Nobody knows who Sepio Saunders is, but everyone knows who Eric Cannon is. And Eric Cannon took so much time to sit with me in bars afterwards, to sit with me and hang out and talk to me and give me like the knowledge that I have today that I was able to take forward. So Eric Cannon's who I credit as my teacher, even though he wasn't my trainer.
I got you. Well, we had a long discussion last night off air about this current crop of guys and how it's so easy if you play to the crowd on Twitter to get over, as opposed to working hard and jumping in cars and losing money. I would imagine that Eric, being from an older generation, he sort of helped instill that within you, that you just got to make the drives if you want to get noticed.
All the time, and that's why he would encourage me to come out and hang out after the show so he could talk about that stuff. You know, I'm not a notorious bar goer. I'm not a notorious after the show guy, but in those times afterwards, he'd say like, "Hey, here's what it was like for me." And guess what? We didn't even have GPSs. You know, I had to laminate my MapQuest because I was making that drive to IWA every month. So we had our laminated MapQuest. We took that, but he's like, "I don't care what it is, just go." You know, and he was always big on like, get paid something. You know, make some type of money off of it, whatever way you can. But you got to go. You got to go and you got to be around. You got to be personable and you need to interact with somebody else while you're there to then like possibly get something else. But nobody wants to do that anymore. And even my trainer, Sepio, like he drilled us that you have to be an athlete. You have to look the part. You have to care about your body. Because I was always one, like I was an incredible football player. But I didn't care. I didn't give a shit. I didn't go to the weight room while everybody else did. Yeah. And he was like, no, you need to look the part. When he asked everybody in camp, what do you need to look like? Or like, what's your dream body? You know, one guy was like Goldberg, and it was Brock Lesnar. And I was like, oh, Christian.
That's a good choice.
Right.
You were a little ahead of your time in that regard. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was like, look, Christian's the guy.
Yeah.
And he reamed me. He's like, don't ever say that. I'm like, that's obtainable.
Yeah.
I was like, he's not out of shape.
No.
He's not like, ripped to the gills, but I'm like, dude looks good. I never looked at him and I was like, that guy looks out of shape. Wow. And then he forced me to give him a better answer, and I had to give him Randy Orton as the answer. So I remember that vividly, and people bring it up all the time. Like, remember when Sep yelled at you for saying you want to look like Christian?
That's so weird. It makes me think about, again, new crop of guys, and I'm not going to name the dude that said this, but there's a local dude in Cleveland who at one point, just was adamant about not working out and not giving a fuck, and like has talent, but didn't, he'd get gassed real quick. And when he was talked to about it by me and a couple other guys, he was just like, Kevin Owens, is fat and out of shape and blah, blah, blah. And then it just made me realize like how absent-minded he was, because it's like, A, can you do the things Kevin Owens does, first of all, on the mic, but second of all, also in the ring? Like, even though perhaps maybe he's not the most built guy of all time, he's a little rounder. Mm-hmm. He could still do incredible things that requires a little bit of working out and stamina. So to just kind of brush him off as like t-shirt and shorts, fat guy, it's sort of you're sort of a dipshit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like I think Christian is a wise decision.
I thought so.
But also I think that this newer generation of guys that just looks at dudes and like doesn't think that it requires any sort of athleticism, you're very misinformed, right?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Like, there's so many guys that blow me away the level to which they can go, and they might not look like they can go. But
look at Ricky Shane Page.
Yes. I mean, Ricky's not the modicum of like an Adonis.
No.
But Ricky can go.
Yeah.
And he can move like, I can't remember who it was that said, this body doesn't go fast, but when I need it to go fast, it can go fast.
Right.
Like I can't remember who it was, but it was a great example. I'm like, yes, because it can. Like, when they need to move, they can move.
Right.
But then there's the people that are just like, I don't care, and I'm just gonna be fat, and I'm just gonna mail it in. That's a totally different thing. It's weird because I recently just started taking my body seriously. Like I moved out to Colorado. I'm like, I'm sick of just being okay with what I've got. Because I was like, oh, well, look at guys like Kevin Owens. Look at guys like that. Like, obviously, I'm going to work out. I'm going to do things. But, like, I don't need to look great. And I'm like, oh, but it really helps if you do.
For sure.
It's definitely a bonus.
Yeah, definitely a bonus. You know, a couple other guys I want to mention that I know you worked with that I think can go and just, if from an outsider's perspective, you just saw them, they don't look the stereotypical look of an athlete. Reed Bentley.
No.
John Wayne Murdoch. You know, both incredible talents, but also, and I want to talk about might as well just talk about it now. I think they just get looked at as guys that not only don't have the best look, but they're just deathmatch guys, and so that means that they can't work. And you being so deep in the deathmatch community now, I know you know that that's not the case.
No, and having worked with both of them, you know, like John Wayne Murdoch and I had the feud of last year. You know, if it weren't for Ricky Shane Page and Matt Tremont and Matt retiring and that whole storyline, which I don't care who you are, that's going to top whatever you do. John Wayne Murdoch and I had the most emotionally charged feud that ended in a 60-minute Iron Man deathmatch.
Talk to me about the feud for those that don't know anything about it.
It started with, so King of the Deathmatch, I get a terrible injury, almost ends my career. Almost ends my life.
So let's start with that because
Yep.
I want to talk about that. So it was the, in the term, King of the Deathmatch's first round, electrified light tubes
Yep.
with Jimmy Lloyd.
Yep.
Please tell me this story because it's insane.
So I'm used to 200 light tubes, 300 light tubes. Doesn't matter. We're going all. We have 14 light tubes, and they're electrified. We tell them, like, hey, leave them in the structures. Like, don't take them out. Just leave them in the things like that they're supposed to be used for.
Now, when you say they're electrified, for
There's
someone that
power.
doesn't understand,
They're lit up.
Okay,
They are lit up. They are on.
gotcha.
And so we tell them just leave them in the what they're supposed to be in. They're like, no. This is what we're gonna do. Okay, whatever. Like this, we don't think so, but like they insisted. We've done this. Okay, we don't agree, but okay. Jimmy swings one right away, and the wires are wrapped around the tubes, which is not the way it should be. And so that swings around and slices my neck right away. Okay, that sucks. Well, I go and I do another move, slingshot DDT, Johnny Gargano style. I go to hit it. I've hit it a million times onto light tubes. These tubes are down. I plant the DDT, and when I plant, one of the tubes breaks and goes right into the artery in my right tricep. Ugh. And I felt it. I was like, that's not right.
No.
I'm like, that's not okay.
No.
But Sean O'Brien was like, yeah, it's deep, but you're not bleeding. We're going. All of a sudden, oh, yeah, you're bleeding. Yeah, this is bad, and I can feel it. And he's like, you got to take it home. And I'm not one to take it home. I'm one that's like, nope, I'm finishing this match.
Why would you?
No, yeah, I mean,
Pro
come
wrestling.
on. And it's my first King of the Deathmatch. My goals in wrestling were Japan, check. And then after that, King of the Deathmatch. That was my goal. So I was there. I'm like, I'm not mailing this in. I get taped up, finish the match, get to the back. I'm bleeding. I'm like, okay. I don't get stitches. I don't do that stuff. I'm like, that's fine. I'm sitting there. Finally, Ricky Shane Page comes over, and he looks at me. He's like, it's bad. You need to go to the hospital. He's like, because initially he's like, we'll see what it's like. We'll get there. And he's like, hey, brother, I know you don't want to, but you need to go.
And if Ricky says that.
And that's what I took,
yeah.
you know. And I'm always I was super calm. I always am, because I know if I freak out, it's going to get worse. So super calm. And Ricky changes me. You know, gets me out of my gear, gets me into street clothes. I get in the second they see the wound. They call trauma. I've got a trauma tourniquet instantly put on my arm, 9 nurses and a doctor. And this is during COVID, where you weren't allowed to have people in there. And I'm terrified of hospitals. I cry if I get a shot. So I'm in this room, and all of a sudden now this cut that I'm like, oh, it's a cut. I've gotten a million cuts. Now all of a sudden this is a serious situation, and I'm stuck. And I remember vividly, like, going in and out of consciousness as I'm losing this blood, and seeing them close the door on Jimmy Lloyd, because Jimmy came with me because he's a good human being. They closed the door on Jimmy because he can't be in there because of COVID. Closed the door, and I just remember the, like, defeat in my body, accepting the, like, it's over. Yeah. Like, I'm going to die alone in this hospital room in bumfuck nowhere, Indiana. I somehow make it out. Everybody is like, oh, yeah. Like, the reports and stuff came back, and they're like, oh, they should have given you a blood transplant. And they didn't. Oh. Like, they didn't. They should have transfused blood to me. They didn't, because I'm a young, in-shape guy and have negative blood, the kind that you can only get that, but you can give it to everybody. So I am then ruined, like mentally, physically, like I'm going to go super far in the King of Deathmatch, and now I'm stuck. And I'm almost dead. Like,
So you were originally supposed to advance.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I won the match, and I was supposed to, like, behind the scenes, I was supposed to go pretty far.
Yeah.
And my first ever. I was over the moon. Like, that was so much vindication.
Yeah.
And it's taken away from you. And fast forward a month later, and it's ICW Milwaukee, Insane 8, my home promotion, my wheelhouse. I've won that tournament 2 years in a row going into this. Murdoch and I, first time ever, first round, we have a 25-minute incredible match. And everybody was like, like nobody could believe it. And then the first round. And it delivered on every level. So everyone's like, well, I got to do it again. I beat John in that match. Fast forward to a no holds barred. And we do the infamous balcony destroyer.
Yeah.
John beats me. Another match, same year. That everyone's like, well, that's the fucking match of the year. After just having a match of the year with John. And then I remember booking myself in my own angle. I was like, look, well, now we're 1-1. You got to do it again, because I'm a good, smart wrestler and know how to get follow-up bookings. And then they were like, well, what other way to do this? Can you guys do it? I was like, hell yeah, I can do that. John's like, sure. And you look at John Wayne Murdoch, he's got that beer gut. His arms have no definition. His legs, tiny little legs. But John can work circles around nearly anybody. The best storytelling I've ever seen is John Wayne Murdoch and Aaron Williams in a match in front of IWA, and the house was light. But we go out, and I'm taking this as you've been around wrestling long enough to know that, like, really making wrestling history is hard to do at this point. Like, everything's been done in one way or another. People have seen it all. This was a chance to do something nobody's ever seen and, like, genuinely make history.
Yeah.
Fun fact. How I don't talk to my parents. I sent them a message because I knew they lived in Florida as a fuck you.
Okay.
And invited them to the show.
Oh, wow.
To watch me in the main event make wrestling history.
Yeah.
They showed up.
Did they?
They showed up, and that's the only time I've talked to them since.
Wait, how did that go?
It went fine. I shook my dad's hand, said hi to my mom.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's crazy what can happen when you actually believe in yourself, right?
Holy shit.
And they were like, that was pretty cool. I'm like, yeah, it was.
That's a victory.
Yeah.
That
And,
really
and like,
is.
it was kind of a fuck you, but, like, it felt good for me because I knew I was doing something special, and they just happened to live there, and might as well.
Yeah. Hell yeah. You know what? I want to go backtrack to the injury, though. You get this near, not only career-ending, but life-ending injury. How does that go over with the wife and the kid?
So, my son's with his mother. We were on and off in terms of talking. It was hard for him to take in, but him being only 10, he registers it, but doesn't really.
Yeah.
I have to explain to his mom, hey, this happened. Like, I just want to keep you informed of what's going on. She freaks out. She's not super thrilled, but he gets it. He's just happy his dad's alive. But my wife was not thrilled. My wife, who struggles to watch me do death matches, as any, I'm sure, loved one does.
Sure.
It really sucked for her to hear. My first thought once I found out I wasn't gonna die was, can I wrestle tomorrow? Like,
yeah.
And that's where I knew, because I was stuck wondering, when am I gonna leave? Like, what's my end game in wrestling? And I had the Insane 8 win over Matt Tremont. And I went into that day not telling anybody, but I was going to quit. I was going to win the Insane 8, against Matt Tremont, the most decorated deathmatch tournament winner, and it's gonna just leave my wrestling shoes there. Do the Eric Stevens, don't tell anybody, and just do it.
Sure.
Go out when you feel it's right. And it just so happened that the way Matt talked after that kept me there, and I was like, okay, well, now I'm in it, but what's the end? That injury happens. I'm sitting there, and my first thought is, can I wrestle tomorrow? Can I continue on a King of the Deathmatch? Like, I knew right there that deathmatch wrestling was going to be what I did forever, or until it's time to actually retire. And
Sure.
I don't want to be the guy that does it when he's 70, but like, I knew right then, this is it. This is who I am. This is what I am. And my wife struggled to accept that. Like, she was like, please just be done. Please stop.
Yeah.
Like, just be a normal wrestler, like everybody else.
Why not be a normal wrestler, though?
It's not the same. I take pride in my normal wrestling. I have that at Rocky Mountain right now, and different times I'm allowed to flex that muscle. But when I toured Canada and stuff, it was as a normal wrestler. It wasn't as a deathmatch wrestler. But these deathmatch fans and the family that I have with deathmatch wrestlers is unlike anything that I ever found in normal wrestling. That experience is surreal. That environment is surreal, and I truly believe that I am one of the best in the world that does deathmatch wrestling. Granted, because I've been around the best in the world, and they have given me their time and efforts into helping mold me. But I feel like I want to be known as one of the best to ever do this.
Do you think, and I'm going to get a little deep here, because I was talking to Eric Ryan about it on the show a few weeks back. Do you think that this desire to do deathmatch wrestling, and quite frankly wrestling in general, do you think it stems from something from your childhood? Because I often think about, I've dabbled in the deathmatch stuff now that I'm with 440. I've obviously done stuff where I'm bleeding in the past a handful of times over the years, and I would be lying if I said that I didn't get some sort of therapeutic rush from those moments, from the crowd, from the idea of the blood exiting my face. And you know what I mean? Like, it does something to me that I've never done drugs. I did a little bit of alcohol when I was younger, but nothing has made me feel the way wrestling does. So do you think this deathmatch desire comes from childhood?
Oh, yeah. I don't know if it's childhood, but it's definitely a mixture of, I have a history of, I'm bipolar. I have, severe depression. I struggle with, a lot of social anxiety, a lot of stuff like that. And I was hospitalized many times as a child for suicide attempts, as an adolescent teenager.
Sure.
Always tried, always failed. Always tried, always failed. I've never been a happy guy. And I feel like a lot of people that do death matches, like, probably have that, like, there's something in them, like, even if they're happy people, there was something that happened or something that they've gone through. And I don't know if it's like a lack of value for my life or like that rush of, because I was a drug addict and, sobered up, like, and I always tell people it's unlike any drug you'll ever take. It's the best rush, it's the biggest high, but that depression afterwards, it hits hard after you do a deathmatch, because when you do it, you're on top of the world. There's that fight or flight, that like you're in a fight for your life, genuinely.
Sure.
And the crowd is insane and deafening. It definitely comes from that, because I think somebody that's emotionally well and somebody that had a great childhood, sometimes I'm could say, yeah, I'll do a handful, but like, I think it's hard to make a life out of it if you don't have that trauma, if you don't have, because I don't know if people need that the same way that we might need it and we don't know it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Deathmatch wrestling, again, the community, I think there's a misconception, as we sort of alluded to earlier, that because you do deathmatch wrestling doesn't mean you can wrestle or tell stories. You've told some of the greatest stories I've seen, and you're still young in the business, you know what I mean? So when it comes to deathmatch wrestling, besides yourself, who do you think are the greatest storytellers in deathmatch wrestling overall? Like, who are some of the guys that have paved the way for what you're doing now?
Well, you look at guys like Nick Mondo, who started the real hybrid style. and really started opening that door for wrestlers. Not just guys that were hack and slash guys, which there's still a place for that. And those hack and slash guys, I think, now know that that's their wheelhouse, but it's not a disrespectful thing. It's they have their place. But like the guys like Matt Tremont, where that was always his mindset was, I'm going to tell this story. I'm going to go out there and we have these things to bleed and these things to break and these things to do, but like here's the story behind it. I remember I worked Matt for the first time ever in West Virginia, and we had a match. He put together, a story of like a young kid just trying to make his way. When I beat him, everybody lost their shit because Matt made that story work. He's like, I don't need to win. It doesn't matter, but if you win, it's huge.
Right.
And I think Matt is like amazing at that. I think Danny Havoc was amazing at that because they looked at it in that, cerebral way. It's not like, oh, how can we do this? How can we, what can we break? What can we do that? They were like, okay, how can we make them feel? How can we make them care? And I think in today's world, Alex Colon, G-Raver, Eric Ryan, Schlack, and yes, even Schlack, goes into this with the mindset of how can we make them care? Not, okay, we can do these cool bumps, which you can, and they're important. But even last night, Eric Ryan is like, how can we make them care?
Yeah.
How can we make them care in a different way than we've made them care before? And it's such a refreshing time to be a deathmatch wrestler because there is stories. There is people that are like, you know what? I guess I would like to do that because I can see that there's a story to be told. I can see that, I have a guy who was my original wrestling manager. I lived with him for a long time. He basically, bailed me out of the worst situation I could be in. And he was a big Hogan guy, big 80s wrestling, 90s wrestling. Man, this is, the new generation has just gone by the wayside. Hated deathmatch wrestling. Now he watches everyone because he knows that there's something more to it now. That there's that level of storytelling and not just let's break as many light tubes as we can.
Yeah.
Now, if we break as many light tubes as we can, there's a reason we fucking did it.
Absolutely. Over on Patreon, we talked for an extra 10 minutes about perhaps maybe people doing some deathmatch wrestling for clout, and we talked about time-bound pro wrestling. But I want to segue into, your character. On the outside, I think if someone just saw you, they'd think that guy he looks like a deathmatch wrestler. I could see it. But I feel like you becoming the Wizard King really separates yourself from other deathmatch wrestlers because you can embrace the more undeathmatch things about you. Want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Something I always tell my students is I was the Dark Prophet for a long time. And look, just because I don't necessarily believe in God does not mean I'm a really good spooky guy and a really good, demonic character.
I think that's a misconception for people that do believe in God.
Yeah.
So, just because you don't like Jesus,
yeah.
You're not a horrible person.
Right. I was like, that's not me. And there's people that do it a million times better. Look at G-Raver. He's great at his character. That guy gets it. I'm not going to do that better than him. So it's what do I love? Anime. I love anime. I'm a giant weeb. I love that stuff. I sit at home and I play Yu-Gi-Oh on my PlayStation. I'm not a cool guy.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Hey, everyone's perception of cool is different.
Fair.
All right.
But that's what I love. That's why when I came out at the first Tournament Survival I did, I was wearing a Digimon shirt. And I go over to Japan and the Freedom's champion is like, oh, he was thrilled that I wore a Garurumon shirt. He was like, this is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
I was like, that's because that's what I love.
Mm-hmm.
Once I stopped being somebody I wasn't and just was like, hey, I love Digimon. I love anime. I love these things. I'm going to become the Wizard King because I spent a road trip going down to West Virginia and I binge watched Black Clover and I remember Dysfunction going, God, I feel like this dude really wants to be the fucking Wizard King because that's all he kept saying. That's all the main character kept saying. He's like, I bet this is what this is all going to be about. I was like, yeah, I bet it is. And because he's not a big anime guy, but he ended up, coming around to it on that drive. And I got home and I really sat down. I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna change my moniker. I'm gonna do that. And I remember my wife was like, no, you can't. That's so much rebranding. I was like, I think it'll be worth it. it was definitely worth it.
Yeah.
Because then, like, now I can have the entrance jacket that looks like Seto Kaiba, you know, like I'm about to go out at, you know, the finals of Battle City. And,
Yeah.
you know, like, it's fun. I'm enjoying it. I can connect with a totally different audience that didn't care about me before.
Right.
You know, now when I do stuff on Twitch or something and I'm playing Yu-Gi-Oh, I have so many random fans come in and they're like, "What? You love Yu-Gi-Oh?" I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh my God, let's talk about this."
Yeah. Now we have a new connection.
Yes. And when it's organically me, it's fun, man. It's so much fun to just be happy-go-lucky guy out there. Like, I don't have to come out and be super serious, angry, Orin Veidt, I'm going to kill you. I'm like, no, I'm going to have fun. I'm going to be a little cocky. I'm going to, you know, have a smirk on my face most of the time. And when it comes down to business, I can do business. You
Absolutely.
know, I can go.
And that's what wrestling is about. Like, you want the people to run the gamut of emotions.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we're in. We're in the business of storytelling. Even if it's deathmatch wrestling, we tell stories.
Yeah. And when I come out, like, with a smile on my face, you know, slapping hands and, like, just having a good time, it's so much easier for me to get lost in what I'm doing out there. As opposed to, like, oh shit, that's right, I need to, how can I be spooky? How can I do this and look demonic? Where's the cameras? I gotta look scary. No, this is gonna be me.
Yeah.
And people have, like, my fans skyrocketed. People could care about me as a person and then as a wrestler. Because I'm very transparent on who I am, what I love, you know, the things I like. I'm not very, as an introvert, which is weird, I'm very open. Like, people know, like, this guy loves the Astros, he loves anime, and, you know, like, they know what I'm about.
Yeah.
And it's made wrestling so much fun.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about. And look, you've only been doing this for 6 years, and we haven't even touched on the fact that you're sort of internationally traveled. You know, you've gone to Japan, you've gone to Mexico.
Goddamn right.
Those are all incredible things in such a short amount of time. But the one thing that really stuck with me when we were talking last night that I sort of want to, as we wrap this up, talk about, you've been sober for 9 years. And the one thing that we really connected on in our conversation was the idea that, you know, I've been really trying to get this motivational speaking going again now that the pandemic is over with, and I want to be back in schools talking to kids, because it's this connection that I make that only wrestling has made me feel like that.
Yeah.
Before that.
Yeah.
And, you know, you sort of alluded to the fact that sharing your sobriety with others is empowering and sort of gives you a fulfillment as well.
Oh, yeah. And that was super cool to talk about, was the fact that, like, we've both spoken to groups of people, to a room of people, and shared our stories. And when I got out of treatment, you know, when you were in treatment, when you hit a certain level, you could go to meetings. And as a drug addict, not necessarily an alcoholic, but, you know, if I drank, I had a problem. If I have an addictive personality, so AA worked for me, and I got lucky to go to the right AA place, and it was so positive and fulfilling for me that I wanted to share and I wanted to give back, because I remember when people would speak and I would catch something and be like, whoa, I needed that right now, tonight, because I was struggling. And then when I spoke and I would go to meetings and I would share my story, and you have the people that, you know, AA kind of gets that stigma of, it's a lot of old dudes that are really bitter about drinking and they're just here to drink coffee and complain about their lives. I was able to go up and be this young kid that, my favorite thing about sobriety is that I now get to tackle life's challenges sober. I now get the ability to face these things and figure these things out that before I would run away from. Before I would, you know, I would do drugs to escape and not have to face it, and then know the next day, oh shit, now I've made it worse, and now how am I, like, what lie do I have to tell somebody? What stories am I running? What is this? Now, like, I wake up and I get to handle being in debt. I get to handle that stuff, and I get to, like, figure it out. You know, when I'm faced with a challenge, my first thought is always that the one thing that would make this worse is if I relapsed. That's my first thought when things get really bad. Like, that if I relapsed, things would just get worse. They wouldn't get better. Let's figure this out. Let's handle this life the way it should be handled. And man, that's been so rewarding. And then sharing the story and then hearing people come up and be like, dude, that one thing you said, I needed to hear. And it's like, it gives you those goosebumps. It gives you, you know, that feeling through your body, like, whoa, did I just genuinely impact somebody's life?
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes you don't. And sometimes you speak and it might not hit everybody, you know, or it might just kind of land flat. But the times when people are like, oh my God, I thought I was alone. I'm not alone. And you're not. You're never alone. Like, to be inspirational and to mean it when I say it, like, you always get stuck at one point or another thinking, well, nobody else has dealt with this. I can't. There's nobody that can relate to me. And there is. There's somebody out there that can relate to you and has been in semi that situation. And they'll care. You'll find a way to relate to them and be like, wait, okay, I guess I'm not alone. This can be done. This, I'm not the only person that's dealt with this. There's a way out. And then there is light at the end of the tunnel, and that's so fucking rewarding.
Yeah, and it's important that everyone knows that. And just the idea of giving back, it's so important just to be able to go out there and share your story and know that it's resonating with someone. And listen, I can't thank you enough for sitting down with me for an hour today.
Dude,
and
I love
sharing your story. And there's so much we didn't cover. I say it every time I talk to someone. We could definitely do a part 2 at some point. Before we close this, though, I just want to ask you, you've done so much already in 2021, so as things are opening back up, what's next? And more importantly, what inspires you? What keeps you going?
What's next is King of the Deathmatch. That's next.
Redemption.
Yeah. It's going back where I thought I'd never be back again. And now I'm back. And I'm not falling flat. There will not be an injury. It will be what I want it to be. And the thing that keeps me going is the legacy. To leave a legacy that has been left by other people before, one of like honor, respect, and like a true good person that did great things in the ring. That's what keeps me going. To see those young kids that I teach at Rocky Mountain, those lights come on. To see those young kids that do deathmatch wrestling, that light comes on. They get motivated. They get it. They start to understand. And to see those fans continue to fall in love with this thing that I'm in love with. That's what keeps me going.
That's what it's all about, man. I can't thank you enough. And if someone wanted to find you on social media, how could they do so?
It's at Orin Veidt on everything except Twitch, which is Orin Veidt 18.
Gotcha. Hey, thanks again for your time. And I guess we got to get ready for a wrestling show now.
Oh, shit. Okay.
I know. That sucks, right? Boo. Yeah. That was the interview with Orin Veidt. I thank him so much for his time. It was really a pleasure sitting down, getting to know him a little better.
Did you just tell him he was going to be on the podcast or invite him to be on the podcast?
Oh, boy. How long did it take you to think of that one?
Whole episode.
Yeah, apparently.
We've been recording 3.5 hours now.
That's not true. We didn't go that long. But, yeah, I enjoyed the conversation with him. I think he has an inspiring story. Really motivated by his dedication to sobriety and just overall great dude. Glad we got to chat. I'm glad you got to hear that conversation. But, Aaron, since you just listened to that conversation, I'm going to have to ask you, for the love of God, give me 3 things that you learned about Orin Veidt.
Well, what was inspiring was the story of sobriety.
Mm-hmm.
I know how hard it is to maybe get over some demons.
Sure.
And so, that guy should always hold his head high.
Absolutely.
And I like that he's inspiring other people now
with
his work. And so, good deal there. I would never picture an anime guy to be a deathmatch guy also.
Well, we're real human beings. I mean, listen, we had Eric Ryan on the podcast not too long ago. Would you...
Is he an anime guy?
He's not an anime guy, but would you picture that a guy like Eric Ryan's favorite movie is Short Circuit 2? I mean, I don't think people think about that
when
they think of deathmatch wrestling.
Yeah.
So...
That wasn't even the one where he said, your mama was a snowblower.
All right.
Was that the original one?
I think that's the original one,
Yeah, see? So that was the good one. He likes the second one, huh?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
But, expect the unexpected with deathmatch guys. They're just real people.
Right.
All right? So I guess I'll give you that one, too. But what's the third thing that you learned about Orin Veidt?
The third thing I learned was his love for a nice vegan lasagna.
He never said that at any point.
He was talking
on the podcast.
about it.
Nope.
he said he likes the lettuce, and instead of the noodles, he puts it like a cauliflower based, does it up like that. And
Did he tell you this personally at some point, or are you just imagining that he said this in the podcast? Because he didn't.
this didn't happen?
Nope.
Must be another podcast I was listening to.
No.
Do we have other podcasts in our empire?
This is the only one, buddy.
This is the only one you do and the only one I do, huh?
Yep.
Yeah, I could have swore he said he loved vegan lasagna. I'm not sure.
Okay. Wow. You're an actual moron.
Shoot. So I didn't get it.
No,
All right.
you didn't. Before I go this week, I want to point out that I went to has nothing to do with lasagna, but I went to a lovely Greek restaurant this past Friday with my girlfriend.
Ew, Greek.
Nicole, what do you have against Greek?
I don't like Greek food.
I wanted to walk into the restaurant, and I didn't say it, but see if you catch on to this, Aaron. I wanted to say, I wanted to tap Nicole and then say, "Wow, I feel like I went from chic to Greek."
And what's the punchline?
Well, because they used to do those talk show segments on like Jenny Jones where they would do like from geek to chic. So I wanted to do from chic to Greek, but then I didn't say it. But then I told Nicole that I was going to say that, and she said, "I'm glad you didn't, because I don't understand it, or do I think anyone else would have understood it?" And I thought that she was incorrect when she said that.
Man, I didn't get it at all.
Okay. Well, also, I'd like to point out that her twin sister Jess was there, and she's a saint. She also bought me ice cream this past week, which I appreciate. And I just, I hope one day that she finds someone to spend her days with, because she's just such a beautiful human being, but she's so precious. And I just hope that no one out there goes out of the way to creepily add her on Facebook and just do anything that might make her feel uncomfortable or weird, because she just deserves the best. I just wanted to throw that out there.
All right. So cool, man. You have a girlfriend that has a sister.
Twin sister, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how many years apart are they?
Well, they're twins.
Oh, okay.
So,
All right.
just, seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Seconds apart.
Hmm.
No one added Jess on Facebook?
I don't.
No one.
No one. I'm the only one here. What do you?
No one that you can think of offhand?
Oh gosh, it was more like a butt dial. It was like a butt request. No, wait, that sounds bad. Okay, wait.
Oh boy.
I mean, like the phone was in my pocket, and I think it just sent through a request.
Okay.
Probably when I was sitting, or standing, or walking, or some such thing. Why?
Or scrolling
Did
through
she
Facebook.
say something?
I don't know.
Did she say something about me? Say she likes anybody from the podcast like more than a friend?
That's the end of the episode this week.
You blew it!
Until next week, come on back for episode 113. But this week it's 112. But we have to go. So make sure you follow us on social media at Iron on Wrestling. Of course, follow me on social media at Gregory Iron on Twitter, at Gregory_Iron on Instagram. Find me on Facebook. And, of course, if you would like to book me for pro wrestling, motivational speaking, pro wrestling seminars, or anything, contact me either through DM on one of my social media platforms or at Gregory_Iron at yahoo.com. Go to prowrestlingtees.com/Gregory Iron for all your Gregory Iron t-shirt needs. You can find me on Cameo as well. Cameo, just search Gregory Iron, and I will give you a shout-out of some sort. Whatever you'd like, I'll do it. Just give me the money. Aaron, what would you like to plug?
At Fair to Air on Twitter, and you can find me at Fair to Aaron on Instagram, and I ain't doing much else. I don't even really do those things that much.
You want to plug your Facebook at all?
That's private.
Oh.
I would never just friend a fan.
Okay. Well, that's it. Come back next week, and until then, make sure you enjoy this. Make sure you enjoy this. Stammering over my words.
Man, we got to the very end and then.
Boy. Okay, well, just give me a kiss goodbye. Let's go.
Here we are, all alone, you and me, privacy, and we can do anything you fantasy. I wanna make your dreams come true. We can make love in the bedroom, floating on top of my waterbed. I am kissing you, running my fingers through your hair. In the hallway, make love away beside the stairs. We can do it anywhere. I can love you in the shower, both of our bodies dripping wet. On the patio, we can make a night you won't forget. On the kitchen floor, as I softly pull your hair, we can do it anywhere.